The reality is people are going to come to you because they believe in you and what you have to offer. And someone else could potentially be offering the same thing, but they may not resonate with them as well. And one of the things that I've learned over and over and over is I have to be truly authentically myself. People want to see the real you, and they want to see that you're a normal human being like everybody else, and you do mess up, and it makes them feel more normal. So that connection with them and you being 100% your authentic self has always helped me.
Welcome to the From Spaghetti to Growth podcast. I'm your host, Seema Alexander, a business growth strategist and advisor and creator of the Unique Method. In each episode, I have unfiltered conversations with successful founders, CEOs, and experts where we delve into their business journey of how they went from chaos to growth and everything in between. If you're an entrepreneur seeking inspiration, tips, and strategies to take your business to the next level and turn your spaghetti into growth, this is the podcast for you. Now let's start growing. Hey, Grow Tribe, I have some exciting news for you. I know if you're listening into this podcast, you are seeking strategies to grow your business, to have your breakout years. Right now, the applications for the Disruptive CEO Business Growth Academy are open. www.disruptive.ceo/accelerator. Go to the website, apply, and become part of the Growth Tribe. I'm going to take you in a 10-week journey to change the way that you approach business, to get you clear on your unique positioning in the market and disrupt the status quo so that you can exponentially grow. This is the clarity that you've been seeking. I'm telling you, don't miss out on this opportunity right now. Go to www.disruptive.ceo/accelerator and apply today. Lizzie Ens, former Amish girl who chose to jump for a better life and future, now founder of the UnDiet Yourself revolution, board-certified nutrition practitioner, personal trainer, author, and speaker on a mission to change the world by helping millions of people ditch dieting for good, heal your gut, control your hormones, and your relationship with food. Welcome to this episode of From Spaghetti to Growth. I am your host, Seema Alexander, and I'm excited about our guest today, Lizzie Ens, the founder of UnDiet Yourself. This is a really cool topic that we're going to get into, the health and wellness space. You know, I find it fascinating. I've done a lot of work with a lot of health and wellness practitioners, helping them to find their unique position in the marketplace. And this is always, I think, an entrepreneurial's dilemma, right? When you're in a space that looks super saturated, how do you stand out? How do you find that platform that's uniquely yours, right? And what's the story behind it? The real story to get you there, right? And so what we're going to do is go into Lizzie's story right away. Okay. Lizzie, you ready to tell everybody how you, all right, we're going to tell everybody how you turned your spaghetti into growth. So let's start with the question I ask all the founders. What was the driving force behind your decision to even start a business?
Well, I was a personal trainer in a training studio for 6 years. And like many other people's story, when COVID happened, it was the time. It was like the time of saying, okay, I need to change something. And the thing is I knew for a few years that eventually I would be doing my own thing. I just didn't have that push of like, all right, now it's the time to do that. And so when COVID happened, I was in this space of, all right, I need to shift. And everything was shifting online. And God was like, all right, time to go. It's your turn. And that was my driving factor behind that and where everything started.
So I heard the words, God was like, you know, and I want to probe into like little nuances of our conversation because it's important. And those things actually will resonate with a lot of people. So what does that mean to you when God was like, right? Because yeah, let's just, I'll answer after my thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
He has a purpose on our life, right? Like there's a purpose, there's a reason we are here on this earth. And a lot of people go through this life not even knowing what that purpose is. And then diving into that purpose, because behind purpose, there's passion. And if you can work in your passion, then you can make magic happen. because I always tell people, if you're not passionate about what you're doing and you don't love what you're doing, what are you even living for? Because there has to be a passion and a purpose behind that. And for me, that is working in the health field, in the health industry. And it was a step-by-step process to get me to where I am right now. But God led me the entire time. The entire time he's pushing me, he's giving me that desire to learn more and to not settle, to not become complacent in what I know and what I can do, and then diving into that passion behind it and creating eventually my own business out of it.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up, not because this is a religious podcast, because this is about signs that we all get. You call it God. Some people call it the universe. Some people just call it an inkling, a feeling, like a constant gut, right? And it's just important because a lot of times with entrepreneurs, that consistency of that message keeps coming up in really weird ways. And so that's a lot of times where people decide to take that leap, to take that jump, right? And so I just wanted to throw it out there that you're not alone. If all of a sudden you're seeing things all the time, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. So let's get a lot deeper. Okay. So physical training to now what is your platform is on this concept of UnDiet Yourself, which I know it's about healing your gut. It's about your hormones. It's about your relationship with food, right? But how did you get there, right? Like, let's go a lot deeper in terms of when it first started, what was the story behind it?
Absolutely. So I come from a background of dieting, on the hamster wheel of dieting and looking for that next quick fix. And every single time that I would go through it, I was disappointed because it wasn't something that was sustainable for me. And eventually that led to much more severe health issues where I may have looked healthy on the outside because I shrunk my body and I tried to get as small as I could. But on the inside, I didn't feel good and I wasn't healthy at all. That led me into going and getting certified as a personal trainer. And I was like, yes, I can do this now. I can help other people and go make them work out. Within the first month of training people in person, I realized there's so much more to it than just telling people how to move their body. And the big picture of it is it's about how you're fueling your body, what you're putting into it, how you're taking care of it, how you're sleeping. And so that's what led me into studying holistic health from there. That was a course that I did and I got certified in that. And I used it some in my training career, but it wasn't until I had a few years of experience of that. And I really started to dive into what these huge, massive fat diets are doing to our health and watching how many people are going through that cycle of trying a new diet that comes out or going back to the same one that they did before, hoping that this time around it's going to work. And I still remember very clearly how I came up with UnDiet Yourself. It was during the year of COVID and I'm riding in the car with my family and I'm thinking, I'm in the process of creating a business. I know I'm going to go into online coaching. And all of a sudden, I realized that I'm really, really passionate about teaching people how not to diet and how just to learn how to really fuel and nourish and nurture their body without having to be on a diet. And all of a sudden, the name UnDiet Yourself came up. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the thing that I need to go with. And I quickly called my girl that was helping me and I asked her about it and she's like, yep, that's it. You got to go with it.
So let's talk about those moments I think are pretty incredible when you have a download. I call it the download, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, holy. And so let me ask you though, in a lot of those times, you didn't second guess yourself at that moment at all. Mm-hmm. You just knew at that moment.
Yep, I did.
Okay. It sounds like you got to a place of your platform quicker than most people do. And that's another part of the story I definitely want to uncover. But when you find your platform, tell me what that did for you in business.
Absolutely. So that once I went with that platform and I knew that Undiet Yourself was part of my branding, I quickly got someone to make me a logo so that I could like start pushing that out and branding it in that manner. And then I started talking about it, and me talking about it and really honing in on that specific niche helped me stand out from other people that they're talking about weight loss, they're talking about training, they're talking about these things, but the difference is now you have a name behind it and people go, "Oh, what's Undiet Yourself?" Like so many people are so sick of going back on a diet only to be disappointed. So now we're going to take it and go the complete opposite direction, but it's actually the way that everybody should be thinking about is how can I create a lifestyle that is not about dieting? Okay.
So, Lizzie, my question to you is, it's one thing to find a name for your platform, big aha moment. You're like, holy shit, like this is actually what I've been preaching for a long time. It really makes sense for me. It's aligned to me. It's what people are seeking in the marketplace. So there was a lot of that too. Cause the key, and I just want people to understand, you knew not just because you knew and you're like, this is me, but you knew this is what the market desired. And that I want to make sure that that's also mentioned in there. But what's the meat behind it, right? Because anybody can come up with a name or a brand. Tell me more of the meat behind it.
Yeah, Undiet has turned into a whole acronym now, and that's part of my program. So when you think of Undiet, the first part of it is really undieting and deconstructing your mindset of what we thought that we needed to do in order to get healthy. So a lot of times when people come in, they need to deconstruct a lot of their thought process and what they thought they had to do to relearning what they actually need to do. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is nutrition one-on-one, the very basic parts of our nutrition and what that should look like and how do you balance that. So I tell everybody like your foundation is what matters the most because you cannot build the walls if you don't have the foundation. And the foundation piece of that is going to heavily be focused on what's going into your body and how are you taking care of it because it matters so much. So nutrition 101, going back to the basics of your nutrition. D is going to be your digestion, everything about digestion and your gut, because your gut is so, so important for so many pieces of the body, your hormones, your thyroid, and your brain health and your energy and your sleep. Like everything is connected to your gut. It is your second brain and you need to take care of it. And then your I is going to be your inner health. And that's going to be your hormones and your thyroid, where we do your lab work, where we go deeper into that inner health and get to the root cause of your issues. Because I work in the functional field and we're all about getting to the root cause of things. And so that's where we're going to dive much deeper on why is it that your hormones are out of whack? Why is it that your thyroid isn't functioning? And let's get to the root cause of those things and then start the healing process from there. E is going to be your exercise because that's part of our lifestyle and taking care of our body. We're going to make sure that we're bringing that in as well. And then your T is going to be your transformation. What does transformation look like for you? And how do you keep that transformation when you get to a place where you feel good and you then make that a lifestyle that is sustainable for you and you keep it going?
Yeah. What I heard from what you just shared is it's a very integrated model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is no one, easy way of losing weight. There is no one easy way to getting better sleep. There's a lot of interconnectivity. And you're right. That's what functional medicine teaches, right?
Yeah.
But now you're bringing in your physical, training background with the functional background with the reality and pragmatism of what people desire and people's limitations, and curating a platform and a brand for yourself that really can or has, and you can speak to the results that it's brought to people. Yeah. But let's talk through that, right? Because it's one, again, I'm going to keep dissecting, right? We got a brand, we got the pieces and the recipe of a methodology. How do you know it works? Like, how did you test it? What was that process? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. What I've seen work over and over and over, which is why I'm so passionate about this, is that we have to go back to the basics. we have to go back to keeping things simple, which is that second step that we do is nutrition one-on-one. How do we go back to the basics and really understanding what does a balanced diet look like for you? And I tell everybody, the things that I'm teaching you right now is what we should have learned in high school. Like if we were to teach our young kids in high school or before, I mean, I teach my 4-year-old son these things. What is a protein? What is a carb? What is a fat? And why is it important? Going back to the basics of that and then focusing on bringing in more of the whole foods, bringing in more of those. And when we do that and we fill our plate and our diet with those things, we naturally start crowding out the things that are not as good for us, the ultra processed foods, because we don't have the space for it. So going back to the basics, people are always really, really surprised how much they can simplify things and how basic it can be. And they see results and they feel so much better.
I wanted to mention one thing in that conversation. This is really important for entrepreneurs just in general, especially when you're experts at what you do, to simplify. I've gotten caught in this myself because words we use matter, and they will either attract your ideal client or unattract your ideal client very easily. So in the health and wellness space, there's a lot of conversations about micronutrients and this sort of phytoid. I don't even know. I'm going to say it wrong, but right. But like normal people, even though those words keep coming up these days, don't really understand what that means. Right. And so it actually can be scary when you don't understand when certain things mean, like in the legal world, they have the legalese. In the health world, when you're talking to a doctor, shit, it is the most scariest thing sometimes because they're writing things down. You're like, what is that? And it's like, that's as entrepreneurs, we have to be very mindful because our experience is grounded in results and conviction and understanding our market. But we have to be able to speak the language of our ideal client. And that means simplification. That means stepping back a few steps, right? This is, again, it sounds so, I went from personal training to starting this platform. Give us a little bit of really the reality and where you're at in business right now, right? Like, how are you attracting people? What are give us a little deeper dive.
Absolutely. When I started my online platform coaching, I was a trainer. I did training and I was a holistic health coach. And in my first year of going into business, I decided to go back to school and study functional nutrition, which is what has allowed me to grow at the pace that I have and to be able to help my clients better in a way that I've always wanted to help them. So that's what led me into the niche of hormones and being able to do labs for people, because that's something that also allows me to stand out from some of the people in the marketplace because I'm able to do labs. And so one thing that I really want to mention here is you have to figure out what is it that sets you apart? What is it that you can offer that sets you apart from maybe your competitors? And the reality is you are you. And people are going to come to you because they believe in you and what you have to offer. And someone else could potentially be offering the same thing, but they may not resonate with them as well. And one of the things that I've learned over and over and over how I market myself is I have to be truly authentically myself. People want to see the real you. And they want to see that you're a normal human being like everybody else. Like people think like sometimes when you're a coach and you're in this field, like you're perfect and you never mess up and you do all these things perfectly. But the reality is we don't. And so they want to see that you are a normal human being like everybody else and you do mess up and it makes them feel more normal. So that connection with them and you being 100% your authentic self has always helped me because people feel like they can talk to me and it's safe.
Okay, so let's talk through that because I think you bring up a very important point, especially when you are the brand of your company, right? People buy from people, not from brands, right? People buy from people, not from brands. And that connectivity is important. So explain to me as an expert in who you are and what you do, how do you take the mask off, right? How do you, without feeling like if you take the mask off, they're going to think I'm a fraud. And so what is that fine balance of being authentic and being you, versus feeling like if I take this mask off, I'm going to be like, not that, we all make mistakes and we all like, we're all human, but that's the
Yeah.
stuff that goes through entrepreneurs' minds because what you're saying is exactly right. So what is the process you went through to get there?
I feel like a lot of that for me was growing within myself and being confident in myself as well. And like learning me and being okay with, listen, I've had a lot of people come at me with hate too. Like if you put certain things out there, like I have a big audience on Instagram. And if I put certain things out there that may bring some controversy, you're always gonna have people that come at you for things. But it's you being confident in yourself and saying, okay, I know that what I'm doing and what I'm teaching is bringing the right people to me. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody's going to want to work with you, and that's okay. But the right people will come to you, the ones that connect with you. And so you have to get to a place where, like, I'm not going to please everybody, and not everybody's going to want to work with me. And that's okay. But the right people will. And so, I mean, you can choose how vulnerable you want to be or how much of your life you want to expose and how much you want to share. Absolutely. I think there's certain things that you probably shouldn't share. Absolutely. But they
Mhm.
want to see that you are vulnerable and that you do have days where you're not okay. And that's okay because it makes them connect and feel normal as well.
So how do you share that? How do you share those authentic moments? What do you do?
In my marketing or in
Yes.
my on my Instagram,
On and
on
on a
in any
channel that your audience would see. Yeah.
yeah, I get vulnerable in my stories a lot and just talking about what's going on or if I'm saying like let's just say, take yesterday or this morning for an example. I went to the gym early this morning and I did not want to go. But the reality was I knew that I needed to go because it was going to make me feel better. And so my vulnerability is sharing like, hey, I did not want to go to the gym. I had no motivation to go, but I did anyway because it's within those hard times and the times that you don't want to do something that you actually need to do it because that's where you'll find your strength. And you're going to be proud of yourself for pulling through with that.
That's great because that's motivating not only yourself, but for others who are feeling the same thing. That was a really, really great example. Thank you for sharing. I want to know, like, when you're by yourself, okay, and you're like on your phone Googling stuff, what are you Googling? What do you nerd out on? Mhm.
The science of the body. I listen to an amazing podcast. And I'm a podcaster. I don't Google a lot of stuff because Google is a little biased. So I'm really careful like where I read my stuff. But I listened to an extremely well done podcast this morning and it was all about the body and the gut and just hearing this person talk about all that stuff. Like that's what I geek out over.
Yeah. I think I love asking this question. I ask my clients all the time. I ask people who are passionate about what they do because I'm always curious. Because it's like, if you know that's what you're excited about, like I Google stuff about business or all I listen to is business stuff, right? Because it's just,
Yeah.
I get excited. I love personal development. I love bringing brand. I love bringing all that stuff together. And if people are looking at my like Google search or my chat GPT these days or other things, they're going to be like, wow, you're such a geek. But I'm like, I'll own that. Right. So it's
Yeah.
like important because the
Mhm.
people you want to learn from are the people who are geeking out on things to get better and better.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are lifetime learners, right? We're not just saying, hey, this is our method and this is the only way, or there are ways to keep learning, so we're incorporating things that we're learning as we go through the process, but we have different techniques to help and are proven to get people to the outcome that they're seeking. What Okay, so why health? Like, where did that even come from for you?
It stems from my childhood. I had a lot of health issues when I was in my teenage years. And that sort of was the driving factor to everything. So, what's crazy is where I grew up, I grew up in an Amish community, and you would think that they're healthy, but they're not for the most part. They do grow their own food and raise their own animals and preserve their own meats and all of that, but it's the way that they cook their food that makes it unhealthy, which is a lot of sugar, a lot of fried foods, just really heavy stuff. And when I was in my teenage years, I ended up having a really bad eating disorder because I had a twin and I was bigger than she was and I got bullied for it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to prove that I can be smaller. So I do everything I could to shrink my body. And finally, I like weighed less than she did. And I'm so happy, but I wasn't healthy. It brought on a lot of health issues. And so that was kind of like a revolving thing. I ran away when I was 19. And when I ran away, I got introduced to fast food, microwave foods, lean cuisine, frozen foods, like those types of things. And I was like, great, I don't have to cook anymore. This is amazing. And I started eating those types of foods. Well, I quickly realized that started adding on pounds that I didn't want. And all of a sudden, I'm like 15, 20 pounds heavier than I want to be. And I started to look into, okay, why is this happening? That's what led me into dieting. I would do all kinds of crazy diets to try to get this weight off. And I would lose the weight, but keeping it off was the problem once you got off the diet. And I still like didn't feel good. So it was this kind of like perpetual thing that happened. And eventually that led me to going and getting my high school diploma because I had an eighth grade education. So I went and got that high school diploma. And nobody had ever asked me before then. Nobody had ever asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be? What are you passionate about? My GED teacher asked me that question and I couldn't answer it at the time because I had never thought about it. And so one day, this is another moment, I'm working as a CNA at a nursing home and I'm in this patient's room and I have my back turned towards the TV, but the TV's on. And all of a sudden this commercial comes on and they're talking about nutrition and it was about college or school or something. And I turn around and it was like download and I pointed at the TV and I said, that's what I'm going to do one day. That's what I want to do. I didn't know how. I just knew at that moment in time, eventually I will be studying nutrition and will be helping people.
Yes. Downloads are the best. I mean, so the story that you just shared is real. Again, I always want to take those moments and really analyze what people say on this podcast. So the entrepreneurs listening, the founders listening, understand why this is important storytelling, right? In the beginning, I asked you about your initial driver and you talked about the personal training going into COVID and reality. Now, this part of the story is where there was the meat and the why, right? And more of, hey, I actually did a personal transformation for me. I saw the problems that I had through my personal journey, and I don't want that to impact other people. And because that aligns with your passion with nutrition and functional medicine and understanding gut health, now you're in the world preaching what you are so passionate about, right?
Yeah.
And if you're an entrepreneur listening right now, that is the magic that occurs when you turn your spaghetti into growth, right? Because you start to put pieces of your life together, pieces that are aligned to who you are and what you do and why you care, to things that people are seeking in the market, right? But
Yeah.
you're unique. There is no competition. Your Undiet Yourself is yours to keep, Lizzie, right?
Yep.
And no one can share your experiences and your results the way that you do. So Lizzie, one thing I definitely want to talk about is your Instagram following, right? So we talked about your platform and how you came up with it. Authority is such an important piece, building expert authority in your business. So my understanding is you have over 30,000 followers on Instagram. Like, how did you do that? How long did it take? What is the give us a little back end on that, because that's not easy to do, especially in this day and age with the algorithm.
Yeah, it's actually much harder now to grow that fast the way that I did like 2 years ago. So part of what happened with me is I was effectively trying to like work on growing my Instagram back in 2021, I believe. And right around that time, trends were really, really heavy and it was easy to go viral. It's not easy to go viral now. But what happened back then is I started talking about my background. And it's a very unique background. So me talking about my Amish lifestyle and what that was like and teaching people about that. Now that's like being really authentic and not being afraid to open up. I understand that not everybody has an Amish background, but everybody has something, right? So the way that I went to that level is because I started talking about it. And some people will argue with this is that don't mix business with those types of things. That's not business. But the reality is it has paid off massively for me because I had like 1,500 followers and then I had a video go viral and like 5 million views. And in 2 weeks, I had gained like 20,000 followers. Now, some of those are eventually going to drop off because not everybody's going to want to stay for all the health stuff. And that's okay because not everybody's going to be your ideal client. It's 100% okay. However, that brought people into my audience and they came because of the video that went viral and what I was talking about, my Amish stuff. And they stayed because of the wellness stuff that I was talking about. They're like, oh, wait, she's talking about health and wellness. And that's what brought him in. And it like actually accelerated my business because I was vulnerable enough because for a long time before that, I had a coach that was telling me, you need to start talking about who you really were. You need to talk about who were you and where do you come from? And I'm like, nobody wants to know that. And then I finally listened to him and I did it. And then this happened. And now I'm at that place where it's like, all right, I do have 30,000 people in my audience. And we all know not everybody's going to see your stuff because that's how Instagram or social media works. However, how do you monetize off of that? And how do you leverage and serve the people that are there? I'm in this space now where it's like, I don't need to see how fast I can grow my Instagram. I need to focus on serving the people that are already there. And that's paying off big time as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the interesting things you talk about your authentic self and sharing your Amish background and the people who are still there, they're there because not only, they're connecting to that, but what you were saying is now that's foundational. So they're actually looking at you more of an expert because you get them. Right.
Yeah.
For either they're connected or they just found your story interesting, right? Because of your vulnerabilities. What is your advice for people in terms of finding their platform to share their expertise? Like why was Instagram your platform? What should other people think about?
That's such a great question because I have a colleague of mine that does very similar work as I do. And her platform's TikTok. She just blew up on TikTok. And one of the things that she's really good at is talking. And on TikTok, you can do 3 minutes of video just talking. And that has served her so well. She just keeps growing and her business keeps growing because that's her thing. That's what she does. I like the flow of Instagram and I got really good at learning how to use it and people knew where to go on Instagram. Like if you say, hey, I want you to book a discovery call if you want to see if you want to work with me, they knew exactly where to go. Mm-hmm. And TikTok can be like that too. But I think that one of the reasons why I haven't gone on TikTok is because I simply don't have the bandwidth to focus on multiple platforms and try to keep up with everything. So I hyper focused on one to get really good at it. And will I go to TikTok or something else eventually? We'll see. But right now, no, because I literally don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Got it. It's important to hear, stick to one. I mean, I think we all as entrepreneurs love to try to do everything all the time, right? And then you spread yourself too thin. And the other thing I heard from you is that you learned it. And I'm assuming that you're getting help now, or that's part of the process, right? But like knowing and learning it for yourself so that you can teach others or at least be able to manage others, when you're bringing somebody on to help and support you is also very important. So you don't feel lost and trying to rely on somebody else when you're not as familiar with the platform. So, anyway, Lizzie, I wanted to make sure we touched on that because, it's one thing, again, to have a platform, have a conversation around a brand and your method, but without being able to amplify it, but no one else knows, right? So again, thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure we caught that. Has there ever been a time that you fell out of love of your business?
There have been times where I would hit this kind of like space of not knowing like I was doing okay. I wasn't like, hey, like my business is gonna go under or anything like that. But it was last fall. During the summer last fall, I was kind of in this place where it was like, all right, my business is doing okay. What is the next step? I know that I'm meant to grow this. What's going to be my next step? But I was starting to feel like I was in on an island a little bit. Like it felt a little bit lonely. Like I'm okay. I can do this. But is this really what I want to be doing for years and years and years? And so I ended up going to an in-person event where I did a speaking competition because I do some speaking as well. And when I went to that event, my sole intention of going to that event was to make connections. I wanted to make connections and I didn't know what those connections were going to be. I just knew that I needed to go. And that's where I met a very specific person that then led me to BLN in the community in BLN that I know you and I are both a part of. And that's where we connected. And when I connected with that community, it changed everything for me because I started making so many connections there. And now I'm like part of 4 different communities, and each community has its own unique method or way of connecting people and style and the way they do things. But the connection with people is massive. Like it's made the biggest difference in my business is
So,
being in these communities.
yeah, I always preach entrepreneurship is not meant to be done alone, right? And
Correct.
you, again, every time I ask you a question, you bring up really good points that are a lot of people go through feeling like you're on an island alone. If you're listening right now and you feel lonely in your business, I always say you're like the 1% of crazy out here, right? Where we're trying to do something different, right? But we're expert disruptors in our own right. But when you have connection with community, and those are
Yeah.
people that are encouraging you, supporting you, have expert advice, that can change the game. And it sounds like that's what it did for you.
Oh yes. I in the first couple of months of being in the community, I doubled my business just
Wow.
from being in the community. And it wasn't necessarily me being in the community and getting a bunch of referrals. It was me connecting with other entrepreneurs and being inspired and then having the confidence to go out there and say, hey, I can actually charge more for my program because they're telling me that what I'm offering is worth a lot more than what I was asking for or what I was charging. That gave me the confidence to bump the cost of my program, and people were still buying it. People are still buying it. And also the confidence in your marketing and how you're speaking about what it is that you have to offer. That makes a huge difference as well.
Yeah. So, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's in that spaghetti phase of business?
You gotta be connected to other people. Whether that is hiring a coach or a mentor or someone that can walk you through that process, but you cannot do it alone. Like if you're in that place of spaghetti where you're like, I got all these things going on, but I really don't know what direction I need to go. That's you not having clarity on where you want to go. And so if you're stuck in that space, like you need to align yourself with other people that are ahead of you and that can say, okay, here's your next steps and this is what you need to focus on. For me, I'm on my 3rd coach in my business and I don't know if I'll ever not have a coach because it always makes such a massive difference in my business and I thrive better when I have someone that's like, all right, here's your next steps, here's what we're going to be doing, and then I do it.
Amazing. Investing in your business, investing in yourself is the only way to grow, is what I heard from
Mhm.
you. Is that,
Yep.
yeah. What is your proudest moment in business thus far?
Wow. That's
Do
a
you-
really good question. I have not thought about that
yeah.
in a
No,
long time.
well, think about it. I take a second because it's important to step back and think about the wins, right? It's important to step back and think about the impact that you make in people's lives, communities' lives, businesses' lives. So I want you to think about that, Lizzie.
I
You
know what it
have
is.
all right, let's go. Let's hear it.
My proudest moments are when the clients come back and they are a completely different person and they get it. And they are their life is changed in such a way that they don't even hardly recognize who they were 3 months ago. Those are my proudest moments. It's not about how much money I have in the bank or how much money I'm bringing in. It's about the change that is happening in someone else's life. Those are my moments.
Amazing. So before I ask you how people can find you and all those things, how can people help you scale your message, your mission, like your business, right? We're all trying to build something great, right?
Yep.
And you can't do it alone. So how can people help you to grow your mission?
One of the new things that I'm working on that is evolving is I'm working on building a whole health community where I build this community of like a membership community where clients can come in a little bit like BLN, but my focus is going to be bringing other experts in the wellness industry in that very specifically niche down on a very specific problem like diabetes or PCOS or endometriosis, someone that's an expert in that field. Nobody's in competition because they have that specific thing. This wellness community is going to be focusing on the functional health of people and providing that information. But I want these experts in there in the community to be able to help build it and bring that expertise for the people that have these very specific problems. So I'm looking for connections to these expert people that are just killing it. And they're saying like, hey, I want to be a part of this community because we can build a massive community out of this.
Amazing. I think I told you I have a really good connection, maybe even two. So stay tuned on that. That's what, again, entrepreneurship is all about. Listen, where can people find you, Lizzie? Where should they go? Where should they connect? What social media platforms? And if there's anything you want to give or share with the community, please let me know.
Absolutely. I am on Instagram and Facebook, but find me on Instagram because that's where I'm most active. Lizzie Ens Wellness is my Instagram handle. You can also find me on lizzieens.com. That's where you can find more information as well. And then I would love to give a free guide to your audience. I have a cortisol adrenal guide because so many people are in that adrenal fatigue phase and don't know it. And so I'd love to put that link in the section, wherever you put it on the podcast.
Sure.
Or
yeah, absolutely.
And it's just a free download and people can go in there. It's pretty in depth and you'll know if you are in adrenal fatigue or not.
Amazing. And Lizzie Ens, LizzieEns.com. LizzieEns.com. Lizzie, thank you so much for being on this episode of From Spaghetti to Growth and sharing with us your, journey. And, there's so much goodness in the work that you're doing. Health and wellness is such an important part of all of our lives. Without health, we have nothing. Your message is so critical for so many to hear. Thank you for being honest and transparent. And I look forward to the next time we get to connect.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You. Hello, S2G Tribe, aka Growth Tribe. As an entrepreneur, I know time is currency, and I don't take it lightly that you listened into today's episode of the From Spaghetti to Growth podcast. I hope it added value, and I'm truly honored to be part of your entrepreneurial journey. Be sure to head to disruptive.ceo and the soon-to-be-coming SemaAlexander.com to grab today's show notes and free resources to uncover opportunities to turn your unique spaghetti into growth. If you found value in today's episode, please rate, comment, and subscribe on your podcast platform and keep listening. Look forward to seeing you on our next episode.